The last survivor. The distant echoes of blaster fire still rang in Lyra's ears as she staggered through the thick undergrowth of the alien jungle. Her body ached, her limbs barely obeying her commands. The wound on her side pulsed with pain, but she couldn't stop. Stopping meant death. Her pursuers weren't far behind. She could hear their mechanical hounds sniffing through the dirt, scanning for any trace of her blood. Her heart pounded, her breath coming in sharp gasps. She wasn't going to last much longer. Her ship had been shot down just hours ago, its fiery wreckage now smoldering in a nearby valley. She was the only one who had made it out alive. And she had no idea why they were hunting her. Her foot caught on a root, and she collapsed to the ground, the pain in her side doubling. She pressed a trembling hand to the wound, trying to slow the bleeding. Her vision blurred. Somewhere in the distance, a voice carried through the trees. "Damn it, thought I saw something." Panic surged through her veins. She forced herself to crawl forward, seeking shelter among the dense ferns. The footsteps grew louder. A shadow moved between the trees, and she bit her lip to keep from making a sound. "Who's there?" The voice was male, cautious. Not one of the hunters. She turned her head slightly, her vision swimming. A human stood just a few feet away, holding a makeshift spear. He looked rough, with unkempt hair and old scars lining his arms. Lyra felt consciousness slipping from her grasp. The last thing she saw was the human stepping closer before darkness consumed her. A fragile alliance. Lyra's senses returned gradually, pulling her from the depths of unconsciousness. At first, all she could feel was the dull ache in her body, then the warmth of a fire nearby. Her head felt heavy, her side still burned, but she wasn't outside anymore. Blinking against the dim light, she found herself lying on a cot in a small, makeshift shelter. Wooden walls, a ceiling of scrap metal, and shelves lined with old supplies. She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain in her side forced her back down. A rough voice spoke from the other side of the room. "If you keep moving like that, you'll just make it worse." Her gaze snapped toward the speaker. It was the human from the forest. He sat near the fire, stirring something in a small pot. His expression was unreadable, but his posture was relaxed, like he wasn't afraid of her. She narrowed her eyes. "Where am I?" "Safe, for now," he didn't look up. "But not for long if you keep asking questions instead of resting." Lyra clenched her jaw. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, but she was in no condition to argue. Instead, she took in her surroundings again. She saw a pile of salvaged weapons in the corner, old blasters, a combat knife, even a bow. Her stomach twisted. Was he planning to sell her to the bounty hunters? The man finally turned to face her, his dark eyes studying her cautiously. "I patched you up," he said, nodding toward her bandaged wound. "You were bleeding pretty bad. Figured I'd at least stop you from dying before deciding what to do with you." Lyra's fingers instinctively curled into fists. She hated feeling powerless. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steadier this time. He hesitated, then sighed. "Ethan." She waited, expecting more, but he didn't offer anything else. "You live here alone?" Ethan nodded. "Been here for a while. Don't like company." Lyra exhaled sharply. "Then why help me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he got up and grabbed a bowl, pouring some of whatever he had been cooking into it. He walked over and placed it beside her on a crate. "Eat," he said. "You'll need your strength." She eyed the bowl suspiciously before picking it up. It was some kind of stew. She took a small sip and felt warmth spread through her body. "You didn't answer my question," she said. Ethan sat back down, rubbing his temples. "Look, I don't know what trouble you're in, but I can tell it's bad." His gaze flickered toward the weapons in the corner. Those guys looking for you, they're serious. And if they find you here, I'm dead too. Lyra swallowed hard. He continued, so, if I'm gonna risk my neck, I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with. She lowered the bowl, her grip tightening. For the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if telling the truth was a good idea. Hunted and hiding. The silence stretched between them. Ethan's gaze remained fixed on Lyra, waiting for an answer. She could feel the weight of his patience pressing against her. She had spent years running, hiding, fighting, never trusting anyone. But now, she had no choice. She took a slow breath, wincing as her wound throbbed. They're not just some bounty hunters, she finally said. They work for the Dominion. Ethan's expression darkened. He didn't move, but she could sense the shift in his posture, the way his fingers flexed slightly as if weighing his next words. The Dominion, he repeated, voice low. So that means you're... Lyra hesitated, then nodded. A fugitive. Ethan exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. Damn it, he stood, pacing the small space. I should have known. No regular bounty crew hunts like that. Lyra watched him carefully. I didn't ask you to save me. He shot her a look. Yeah. Well, leaving you to die wasn't exactly my style either, he shook his head. But now they're probably tracking you, and this place isn't safe anymore. Lyra bit her lip. I was careful. I lost them in the forest. Ethan sighed. You sure about that? Before she could answer, a noise outside made both of them freeze. A low mechanical hum. Ethan grabbed a rifle from the corner and gestured for Lyra to stay put. Ignoring him, she forced herself to sit up, instinct screaming. A scout drone, she whispered. Ethan moved toward the window, peering through a crack in the metal wall. Outside, a sleek black drone hovered above the trees, scanning the ground with red sensors. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. They found me. Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed a small remote from a shelf and clicked a switch. Outside, a short burst of static crackled through the air, and the drone wobbled before crashing into the ground. Not yet, they haven't, Ethan muttered. But they both knew that was only a temporary fix. Lyra swung her legs over the side of the cot. We have to go. Now. Ethan looked at her, frustration flickering in his eyes, but he didn't argue. Can you walk? She gritted her teeth and stood. The pain was sharp but manageable. I'll keep up. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. Then let's move. Together, they grabbed supplies and weapons, slipping out into the darkness. Behind them, Ethan's shelter stood silent, abandoned. But they both knew the real fight was only just beginning. The trap closes. The night air was cold against Lyra's skin as she and Ethan moved through the dense forest. The scent of damp earth filled her lungs, grounding her even as her heart pounded. Her wound ached, but she pushed forward, knowing they had little time before the Dominion forces descended on their location. Ethan moved ahead, scanning the area with a practiced eye. He was experienced, she could see it in the way he avoided dry leaves and broken branches, how his grip on his rifle remained steady. He wasn't just a scavenger, he had been a soldier. Lyra winced as she stepped over a fallen log, and Ethan turned at the sound. You good? He whispered. She nodded. Just keep moving. They made their way deeper into the wilderness, the forest thickening around them. Lyra's senses were sharp, attuned to the unnatural silence. The usual sounds of the night, chirping insects, rustling leaves, had vanished. They weren't alone. Something's wrong, she murmured. Ethan tensed, gripping his rifle. I know. The ambush came fast. A blue pulse of energy sizzled through the air, hitting the tree inches from Lyra's head. She ducked instinctively as Ethan pulled her behind cover. Damn it, Ethan hissed, scanning the area. They're here. Lyra peeked around the tree, eyes narrowing. Cloaked figures moved through the darkness, silent, efficient, hunting them. 3 on the left, 2 flanking the right, she whispered. Ethan smirked. You sure you're not a soldier? Lyra ignored him, reaching for the small blade strapped to her thigh. Her body was weak, but adrenaline pushed her forward. We need to split them up, Ethan said. I'll draw fire, you take the ones on the left. Lyra hesitated. Can you handle it? He asked, his voice softer this time. She met his gaze. I can handle it. Without waiting, Ethan fired, his rifle bursting with light. The soldiers reacted immediately, turning toward him as he dashed through the trees. Lyra moved. Her blade found the first target's throat before he even saw her coming. As he crumpled, the second turned, raising his weapon. She grabbed his wrist, twisting hard until the gun fell. He tried to retaliate, but she drove her knee into his ribs, then finished him with a precise strike to the temple. The third soldier lunged at her. She barely dodged the blade slicing toward her stomach. Pain flared in her wounded side, but she gritted her teeth and fought through it. The soldier was skilled, but she was faster. She ducked under his next swing and drove her dagger upward, ending the fight. Breathing hard, she looked for Ethan. He was still fighting, but barely. The last soldier had pinned him against a tree, a knife pressed to his throat. Lyra didn't hesitate. She threw her dagger. It struck the soldier's neck with a sickening thud. He fell without a sound. Ethan coughed, rubbing his throat. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Lyra managed a smirk. Smart man. But before they could celebrate their small victory, a new sound filled the air. The distant whirring of approaching ships. Reinforcements were coming. Ethan met her gaze, eyes dark with understanding. We need to run. Without another word, they disappeared into the shadows, the hunt far from over. The final stand. Lyra and Ethan ran through the dense forest, their breath coming in ragged gasps. The whirring of the approaching ships grew louder, vibrating through the trees. The Dominion wasn't giving up. They wanted Lyra back, dead or alive. Ethan led her down a steep incline, sliding through the dirt and leaves before stopping near a rocky outcrop. He pulled her behind the jagged boulders, pressing a hand against her shoulder. We can't outrun them forever, he muttered. Lyra wiped sweat from her brow. We won't have to. There's a way to stop this. Ethan turned to her, eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? She hesitated, then exhaled. They don't just want me because I ran. They want what I took. Ethan frowned. What you took? Lyra reached into the inside pocket of her torn jacket and pulled out a small metallic device no larger than her palm. Its surface shimmered under the moonlight, swirling with energy. Ethan stared at it. What the hell is that? A control key, Lyra whispered. It can override their command network. Every ship, every drone, every unit connected to their system, it all runs through an encrypted core. This key, it can bring it all crashing down. Ethan's jaw tightened. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Because using it won't be easy, she admitted. The key needs direct access to their main relay. The nearest one is in their landing zone, and that's where they're taking us if we're captured. Ethan shook his head. So you're saying we need to let them take us? No, she said, eyes flashing. I'm saying we need to fight our way in. Before Ethan could argue, the distant trees exploded in a blaze of energy fire. Branches splintered, flames licked at the leaves, and the roar of Dominion engines filled the air. They had found them. The battle begins. Ethan raised his rifle, firing at the advancing troops. The night lit up with streaks of blue and red plasma as the enemy closed in. Lyra moved fast, weaving through the trees, using the shadows to her advantage. Her body was weak, but her mind was sharp. She couldn't afford to fall now. A Dominion soldier lunged at her. She ducked under his swing and drove her blade into his side before grabbing his rifle. Spinning, she fired at two more closing in on Ethan's flank. "We need to move," Ethan shouted. They pushed forward, cutting through enemy lines. Dominion soldiers fell one by one, but more kept coming. And then, the ships landed. 3 massive vessels touched down in the clearing ahead, their metal hulls reflecting the fire-lit sky. Soldiers poured out in perfect formation, their weapons aimed. They were surrounded. Ethan and Lyra pressed their backs against each other, breathing hard. "This was a bad plan," Ethan muttered. "Just trust me," Lyra said. The gambit. A figure stepped forward from the Dominion ranks. Tall, armored, and exuding an aura of cold authority, Commander Valen. "You've run long enough, Lyra," his voice echoed. "Give us the key, and I'll make your death painless." Lyra tightened her grip on the device. "Or," Valen continued, "I kill your little friend first." He raised a hand, signaling his soldiers to aim at Ethan. Lyra's heart pounded. She couldn't let that happen. Her mind raced. There was one last move left. She met Valen's gaze. "Fine." She held the key up for all to see. Valen smirked, stepping closer. The moment he did, Lyra pressed a hidden switch on the key's side. A pulse of energy erupted from the device, a blinding wave of light that tore through the Dominion soldiers. Their weapons short-circuited. Their ships flickered. And then, chaos. The control key had activated, sending out a command override. Every Dominion drone, every mechanized unit, turned against them. Within seconds, their own war machines fired upon them. Ships crashed. Soldiers screamed. The battlefield became a storm of fire and metal. The end of the Dominion's rule. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm. "We need to get out of here." They ran as the Dominion forces crumbled, their own power turned against them. As they reached the edge of the battlefield, Lyra turned back, watching Valen struggle against his own failing technology. She had done it. The Dominion would fall. And she was finally free. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Lyra looked at Ethan, breathless but alive. "So," Ethan said, smirking. "What now?" Lyra exhaled, a small smile playing on her lips. "Now," she said, "we start over. A new beginning." The sun had barely risen when the dust of battle began to settle. The Dominion's forces lay in ruins, their technology turned against them. The once mighty soldiers were now scattered, leaderless, retreating into the darkness from which they had come. Lyra and Ethan stood at the edge of the destruction, watching the last of the Dominion ships crash into the distant horizon, smoke rising in the early morning light. Ethan wiped the sweat from his brow. Well, that was something. Lyra exhaled, her fingers still curled around the control key. "It's over. For now," Ethan said, glancing at her. "But you know they'll come back." She nodded. "Not for a long time. Without their command network, they've lost everything. They'll have to rebuild from scratch." Ethan crossed his arms. "So what happens now? Where do you go?" Lyra looked at the sky, the endless expanse of blue stretching far beyond the battlefield. For the first time in years, she had a choice. "Anywhere," she said, smiling softly. "Farewell to the past." They walked back to the ruins of the village where it all started. The place where Ethan had first found Lyra, weak and desperate for help. Now, she stood stronger, her head high, her purpose clear. Villagers emerged cautiously from their hiding places, peering at the remains of the fallen Dominion forces. Whispers spread as they realized what had happened: freedom was theirs. An elderly woman approached, her eyes filled with wonder. "You did this?" she asked Lyra. Lyra hesitated. "We did," she corrected, glancing at Ethan. The woman reached out, touching Lyra's arm. "Thank you." Others joined in, murmuring their gratitude, their relief. Ethan smirked. "Looks like you're a hero now." Lyra shook her head. "I'm just someone who got tired of running." A difficult choice. As the day passed, Lyra knew she couldn't stay. The Dominion might be gone for now, but she had made powerful enemies. Staying here would only put the village at risk. Ethan seemed to sense her thoughts. "You're leaving, aren't you?" She sighed. "I have to. If they ever come looking for revenge, I can't let them find me here." He nodded slowly. "So where will you go?" "There are other planets, other colonies still under Dominion control," she said. "With the control key, I can help them break free too." Ethan grinned. "So you're not done being a hero yet?" She smirked. "Guess not. One last mission." As night fell, Lyra prepared to leave. She salvaged a small ship from the Dominion wreckage, one of their scout vessels, now useless to them but perfect for her. Ethan stood by as she powered it up. "You could come with me," she offered. He chuckled. "Nah. Someone's got to stick around and make sure this place stays safe." She nodded, understanding. "Then this is goodbye." He extended a hand. "For now." She clasped it, then stepped into the ship. As the engines roared to life, she looked back one last time. Then, with a final wave, she soared into the sky, leaving the past behind. But her fight wasn't over. Somewhere out there, others needed her help. And she wasn't about to stop now.